Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're hyped up to be? The Terrible Book Club explores whether or not you really can judge a book by its cover or its ridiculous synopsis. If you've ever seen a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Welcome to episode 88 of the Terrible Book Club. I am Chris, and this is Paris.
Hello.
This time we read Emeralds of Oz by Peter Guzzardi. This is another bookstore find by me. I was in the self-help section of some bookstore, and I found this little gem here. I'll read the summary later. Paris, why don't you tell them what we're doing here?
Ha ha, Chris, you found a gem?
Yeah,
gem? You found an emerald?
Yes, that was the joke. You found the joke.
I thought you said it without meaning to. I'm sorry. Yep. So, if this is your first time listening to the Terrible Book Club, what we do is we read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination thereof. So we do the opposite of what most people do when they're browsing in a bookstore or somewhere online. We specifically choose books that we think we will not like, just to see if we're right, to expose ourselves to new things, and to really force ourselves to be critical. Sometimes we actually end up loving the books or liking them or being okay with them. We don't always hate them. They're not always terrible, but they are a lot. A lot of the time they're terrible. But in any case, for today, for content warnings, we have our usual barnyard language. Chris and I speak pretty casually, and there's a fair amount of swearing, so be prepared for that. And God, unfortunately, once again, because the world is terrible, we do have to briefly discuss sexual assault, eating disorders, and abuse. Fun. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
How about I read the summary?
Yep, go ahead.
Peter Guzzardi spent decades as an editor working with some of the wisest writers of our time, from Stephen Hawking and Deepak Chopra to Carol Burnett and Douglas Adams, yet he couldn't shake the sense that everything he'd learned from working with them felt oddly familiar. One day he had an epiphany. All that wisdom had its roots in a film he'd watched as a child, The Wizard of Oz. In Emeralds of Oz, Guzzardi invites us to join him on a journey through the classic film, unearthing gems of wisdom large and small about longing, joy, compassion, fear, power, and having faith in ourselves. He also creates a practical Oz-based tool that we can apply to obstacles to our own lives. Now, like Dorothy, we can activate the magical power we've possessed all along. Written with the grace and insight of all I really need to know I learned in kindergarten, Emeralds of Oz is an instant classic and sure to inspire a fresh perspective on this legendary movie and our own lives.
Yeah, so this is a weird fucking premise for a book, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, you want to help yourself? What about The Wizard of Oz? Have you considered The Wizard of Oz?
Have you considered this movie? Have you considered basing your life on this movie?
Yeah, have you considered, like, literally revolving your entire philosophy around a surrealist children's book?
Yeah, it's a little odd. But, you know, I guess if you're trying to relate to people, having this device, something that's popular and, you know, the public consciousness, I guess I can see that, but it really just feels the whole thing. What is my note about how the whole thing feels? Oh man, I can't find it right now. There's too many notes. But I think I said something about how this whole thing feels like someone's final paper in a philosophy class that they put together
or
the night
film
before.
Analysis class.
Oh, film analysis. Yeah, it's like the night before your film analysis final is due, and you're like, I know.
I've watched this movie a bunch. I can analyze that.
I'm gonna try to make sense out of this.
Next
film.
up, an entire life philosophy based around the film Analyze That with Robert De Niro.
My first note is positive. It says, "I love the green glittery pages at the beginning."
Yeah, he's leaning into the aesthetic a little bit. He's got some Aussie flair.
Hey, you know what? This book looks nice.
Sure.
It was like the layout was really well thought out. The font and kerning is great. It's
clearly
edited. Yeah, clearly edited.
He is an editor. There's some things that could have been edited more, but very easy to read. No like misspellings or weird grammar issues or anything. So that was lovely. I was very happy that this was just an easy thing to consume. I really like the rough-hewn pages inside of it, the green glittery front and back on the inside covers. So like as a physical object and also in terms of the elements of the English language, good. But the content actually, I take that back. I just looked at the cover and realized that it's printed totally off center. Oh, well.
I didn't notice that the whole time. Chris, I'm gonna send you a picture of this right now because I can't believe that neither of us noticed.
Yeah, I definitely didn't notice. I'm opening the book and not looking at the cover that much. So
I guess that's true. But holy fuck,
Let's just start with the fact that this was a thing that Peter Guzzardi himself said, like, hey, I just kind of brainstormed this in front of like my publisher coworker. He was like, yeah, why don't you do that? And that's how the book was born. Oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's like more on the right side than there is like close to the binding of the book. Like it's closer to the binding than the right side. Like,
yep, and it's also too close to the top. It's just not centered. Anyway, so that's weird, but other than the centering of the cover, text, and graphics, it is fine. It's fine. It's good. So yeah, like Chris said, it seemed like it was just kind of this side idea this guy had, and yeah, his coworker was like, yeah, just people buy that, I guess. I don't know.
And then it took him 5 years.
I hate to laugh so hard, but
he says it took him 5 years to write this like 120-ish page book that doesn't really contain any deep analysis.
Yeah, I really feel like this is something you could have fleshed out and published within a year if you have other commitments. So
even 2 if you've got like a busy schedule.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe it took 5 years because he just didn't work on it a lot. Like, I get that. I mean,
yeah, sure. If it's like a really side projecty thing, fine. But
yeah, I guess I would. I mean, because think about how often bands put out albums. Like, we put out our EP in 2019, and I don't think our full length's going to see the light of day until like 2022. So
fair point, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But I guess the idea is
different
like
from this.
Yeah, that's true. The idea is like if he was working on it earnestly and often for 5 years, it's kind of laughable. But I'm guessing he wasn't. This guy is obviously an established editor, has a a real job, things, family, etc. So anyway, I don't know. The copy we have is signed. We just can't get rid of we can't escape from the signed books.
I keep buying the used books, and they all have author signatures on them for whatever reason.
Yeah,
just keep getting lucky, I suppose.
To me, that's just not a great sign.
Yeah, something about it screams like I signed all the physical copies.
Yeah, or
I just threw them out in the world.
I thrust them onto my friends, and they were too polite too polite to say no, so then they got rid of it afterward. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of notes. There's like a quote at the beginning from Krishnamurti, who is, I guess, arguably an important philosopher, but it just I'm not really. I think the other problem with me is I'm not really into this kind of philosophy. This like. So the quote reads from Krishnamurti: "There is no path to truth. Truth must be discovered, but there is no formula for its discovery. You must set out on the uncharted sea, and the uncharted sea is yourself." And to me, it just sounds like some Target mom wall hanging level shit. And even though I know that Krishnamurti is like an important philosopher for people, I am just not into stuff like this with this whole the kind of the vague, and by stuff like this I mean vaguely positive, wishy-washy aphorisms like the uncharted sea is yourself. Like, yeah, dude, I get it. Like, we all have to seek our own truths in life, and we have to tackle our own shit before we try to find any like ultimate truth. I get it.
But what if you did it with Dorothy and her pals?
And here's the other thing, is I feel like starting this book with this quote kind of demeans this quote and the work of Krishnamurti. Because, he's like a well enough regarded philosopher. So, I kind of like juxtaposing that with this analysis, this 101 film analysis of The Wizard of Oz. This is kind of weird, but I don't know, man. I guess whatever makes... You know what? If you consume a piece of art and it impacts you positively, that's cool. I just think it's a little cheesy, and I think this book overall could have done with cutting a lot of the content because it's so repetitive. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that Chris and I have a problem with. Jokes aside, I think that if you want to try to, spew your positivity into the world, that's fine. Just maybe don't be so fucking repetitive about it.
Especially if you're an editor.
Especially if your professional
job is that you're an editor.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that, given his pedigree. So anyway, just to kind of give you an explanation of the structure of the book and the kinds of things we're talking about, it's split up into, I forget what he calls the main points. Emerald? No, the emeralds are the big points. He has a bunch of
the emeralds of wisdom.
He has a bunch of small points, and they're numbered. So it's 1 through 60 something.
Something around there.
1 through. Sorry, there's a bunch of shit at the back of the book that isn't part of this. 1 through 52.
Yeah, roughly.
1 through 52. So there's 52. Pieces of wisdom, and then there are 9 emeralds of wisdom, some of his big points. So they're sort of let me just read some examples. So number 13 is showing up is at least half the battle. 41.
That's what G.I. Joe says, right?
41. Being afraid of fear only makes it worse, so befriend it instead. It's just like these little phrases, aphorisms, what have you. At the beginning, though, before he gets into the pieces of wisdom and then the emeralds of wisdom, there's a foreword. And I don't know why I have a note that says fear versus water. Fight! I don't really remember what that was about. So I probably should have done a better job of taking notes.
Yeah, that's the problem when we read books way before we do an episode, is we end up forgetting what the fuck is this note about?
Yeah.
Very specifically put down. Yeah. Why were fear and water fighting? Fear is a thing that keeps coming up in this book as hey, don't be afraid of things, but also be a little bit afraid of things because that's smart. They kind of trips over itself a lot that way.
Yeah. So I have a note that says I can very much relate to the author's feelings regarding books being an escape when you're a child and everyone hates you. He talks about just being a kid and being picked on and not having friends and things like that. And I totally get that. Books were also my refuge as a kid. I mean, totally. He also tells the story about how he ends up making this one friend who becomes, his best friend, and they go out and play in the snow, and his dad forgets to pick them up.
Yeah,
and so they have to walk home in the cold snow, and they're it's such a long walk, and they were so young that they're okay, we got this last Hershey's, this box of chocolates, we gotta live off of this until we get home.
Poor kids, Jesus Christ.
I know, I felt so bad. I was like, wow, this dad just fucking abandoned these kids in the middle of winter.
What are you doing that just makes you forget that oh shit, I left my kid in the snow?
With his friend. It's not even it was one child, it was 2 children that you abandoned in the winter. And then there's so I don't know, that was just a kind of a funny anecdote. And then he says how he had a mind-altering experience because he went hiking basically without proper foresight about how elevation changes affect your ability to breathe. And I was just how do you go hiking and not think about that?
Some people don't, until you face it, you don't think about it.
I don't know. it's just kind of weird because you really got to plan your hikes, people. Plan your hikes. It prevents injury and death. Plan your hikes, please. And by plan your hikes, I mean get a map. Know how to read a map. Check trail conditions from other people on the internet. It's pretty easy to do. Read up on the terrain you're facing and elevation change. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure people know where you're going, when you're supposed to be back, and if not, they know where to look for you and who to call. Sorry, just my 2 cents. We had actually Chris and I recently had a friend who misjudged a hike and almost got stuck. So you know, it's important. Yeah, I don't know. It was just weird that he was like, "Oh, I could barely breathe on this hike, and it changed my life."
He had like an anxiety attack.
Oh yeah,
realized,
I'm sorry. God,
attack.
I'm sorry. That sounds really insensitive. I didn't remember. You're right. Again, this is the problem with reading books a little too ahead of schedule. Sorry about that. Yeah, you're right. He did have an anxiety attack. I'm an asshole. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I can see how having your first anxiety attack could really change your view of the world. I don't know, Chris, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, you know, I think in his situation it was like the elevation and like not being prepared for the hike that triggered it in a way.
Yeah.
But I think the reason he puts this in this book is that like, hey, you know, it's a fear thing which he keeps bringing back around, and he sort of has this like just work through it, it'll be fine attitude, which is like, okay, yeah, you should work on it, but like it's not the only thing that.
Yeah, it's not really how anxiety attacks work. You can't just be like, I'm fine, and they go away. I mean, there are steps you can take to mitigate the effects and get through them, but it does seem a little like, I don't know, not...
A little reductive.
Yeah,
reductive of a way to approach.
Yeah. Anyway. There's a quote that I actually was like, oh wow, this is actually really fucking poignant right now. He says that we must fight the tendency to sleepwalk through our lives and awaken. And while that's a really kind of fucking pompous way to say that, I agree with the general sentiment. I think it is very easy to become mired in the day-to-day and become complacent with just kind of surviving, and, you know, not really thinking about anything beyond you. So don't do that. Think about things beyond you. I mean, unless you're in a really shit spot and like you literally can't because your day to day is so hard, and I get that. But
yeah, well, I mean, like the reason he brought that up is like he's going through the film chronologically pretty much, and he's always like tying an aphorism or an idea like this, and this is around the beginning of the movie where I think he's referring to like Dorothy dreaming or something, even, or like
yeah, I think so.
I don't remember.
I'm sorry. I remember reading this sentence in the foreword where he was like, we're going to talk about like Kant, Plato, Socrates, Freud, and Jung, and how they're present in Wizard of Oz. And I was like, can we not talk about how Freud is present? Can we?
It's really, he just brings up Freud a couple of times.
Freud and Jung, because Jung wrote a lot about dreams. I've read Jung pretty extensively.
The whole thing is very surface level film analysis.
Yeah.
And like,
I don't remember him bringing up Kant, Plato, or Socrates. Do you?
No.
Me neither.
No.
Yeah, me neither.
So like it's just the thing where it seems like he's just trying to squeeze. He watches the movies like 500 times over 5 years, I guess, and just squeezes out every last bit of surface level analysis that he could. And it's not like inherently bad to, you know, analyze even on a surface level a piece of media like that, but just like...
Yeah, I want to encourage people to engage with the media they like and try to find out why they like it. I mean, that's like what we do on this show, right?
Yeah, but like it seems like publishing it in this way is stretching a lot, especially when a lot of the ideas that or aphorisms that he brings up are kind of reused two or three times.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes 4 or 5. Yeah, it's just the same shit over and over again. I also was confused by his... He brought up Freud a lot more than anything else. A lot more than any of... Like, I straight up do not remember him talking about Immanuel Kant or Plato or Socrates. He brought up Jung once or twice when he was talking about dreams, because, of course, like, that's Jung's thing. But he brought up Freud a couple times, and I know that Freud, obviously, is important to psychology and psychoanalysis, but hasn't so much of his shit been kind of, like, maybe not debunked, but...
tossed aside.
I'm pretty sure like people consider it I don't know. Yeah, like people aren't still using Freudian tactics, are they? I mean, obviously, I have no specialty in psychology or psychoanalysis, but, like, I just always remember Freud kind of being referenced with disdain because he thought everything was about how you wanted to fuck a family member, right? Like, that was his, like, whole thing. Everything was vaginal or phallic, right? Like, that was his whole deal. I don't know. I could be...
Not all of it, but, like, a good portion of it.
I could be talking out of my ass. Like, I know, obviously, that he did a lot in terms of how he treated people, like the whole like dialogue between it's like I always use psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists in the wrong way. I know that they are different. Apologies, but those professionals and a patient, and I don't know. I think that obviously his stuff is influential, but I don't know. Yeah, I always thought that a lot of his stuff was.
Yeah, like if you're
not great
in psychiatry or psychoanalysis, you're not probably using Freud techniques in contemporary times. But if you're doing a surface level analysis of a film and trying to pull out some basic shit, then yeah, you probably might reference Freud.
Well, no, I think his methods were fine. I just think that the conclusions, I think his methods were highly influential and maybe still stick today, but his conclusions about sexuality and stuff like that were the things that were problematic. But again, I'm not an expert on this, so please don't crucify me too hard. I mean, obviously let me know what I'm wrong about, but I don't know, and maybe I'm just remembering things incorrectly, but I personally just I don't remember Freud fondly, based on what I remember reading about him in philosophy. But anyway.
Let's get to some wisdom here. Some Emeralds of Oz.
Yeah, let's talk about, like, number one, the first little baby gem. There are no mistakes, only lessons. And yeah, I actually very much identify with learning that when you're young, kind of being brought up with the idea that there's only a right and a wrong answer, and clinging to the perceived right ones, and having to unlearn that whole system throughout your adolescence and adulthood, because that has been my experience.
Yeah, especially as, like, a music educator, when you have to convince people to, like, hey, just try something. Make the mistake and learn from that, and that is part of the experience here. The goal is to not play perfectly. The goal is to play and get information from that. And
dude, I still struggle with this every day. When I was a kid, it was like, you were either perfect or you were nothing. That was it. There was no room for error. If you made any mistake, it was a failure. It was a total and complete failure that you were to be ashamed of. And so I'm still unlearning that stuff now. I definitely have a perfectionist streak, and it's tough. So yeah, I just remember being like, oh wow, am I agreeing with things in this book already? That's exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that's perfectly agreeable and reasonable.
Good advice, some of it.
The content of it is not necessarily that bad. There's some like the next 2 points you have, it's like, it's important to speak your mind. When a child keeps trying to tell you something, stop and listen to them.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. Generally good surface level advice that everyone has probably heard and tries to implement on some level.
Yeah, but then, the first emerald we get is listen to your longing. And I was conflicted about this. I don't know, Chris, how you felt, but I said I'm not sure, because I think longing like this, like he talks about, can actually lead to some pretty bad choices in people desperate for connection. I think that sometimes I need to clearly reference the text, because it's been a while since I've read this. And
for me, I mean, like, you should be truthful to what you actually want. Don't let other people's ideas of what you should and shouldn't do guide your decision making. And I think the sort of the blanching you had at it is the idea of, like, don't follow it recklessly, which I don't think he's necessarily encouraging you to do it recklessly. But as we have seen before in many episodes of Terrible Book Club, if you don't follow that longing with at least some self-critique and consideration, it can be somewhat disastrous.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I just think that sometimes people, I don't know. Yeah, I think you've said what needs to be said. I'm going to shut up now. I don't know. Some of them I just skipped, and because I didn't have much to say about it. I don't think we need to go through every single 52 bits and 9 emeralds, but number 11 we both had issues with. It was, let me just read the exact. Avoid regrets. Honor your caregivers. So that those are tied statements. Avoid regrets, honor your caregivers. Chris and I obviously had a pretty visceral reaction.
Yeah, because he even says, like, your parents can't always be perfect. Even if they did bad stuff, you should learn to forgive them in the long run. And I'm like,
Nope. No. The answer is no.
Maybe don't hold on to a grudge and, like, let that control you. But, like, at the same time, sometimes things happen that you can't just let go. And because people need to have consequences for that action. Sometimes the consequence of that action is their child holding not wanting to talk to them. Yeah, I mean, I think we've both spoken here and there on the show in the past about how we've both had troubling relationships with certain parents, and how, in my case, I've become completely estranged from my mother by choice, and that was a great decision. There are some of you out there who are going to balk at that, and we're going to maybe think I'm a terrible person, but I just think that these kinds of relationships are a case-by-case basis situation, and telling you that you always need to forgive someone and accept them for their failings is dangerous. Yeah, and there's a lot of assumptions made in that area, too. Like, he assumes, like, the reader's definitely going to have children of their own, too. Like, that's the thing that's definitely going to happen, where it's like, well, who's going to take care of you when you're older? It's like, I don't know, fucking dude, I guess until, like, my legs get so creaky that I can't stand up anymore, then, like, that's it for me. But, like...
Yeah, there's definitely an assumption of, like, the people that are reading this are exactly like me, which is a heterosexual white man with a wife and children, and, like, if you're not that, you're going to be part of that. Yeah, there's just kind of this. It's not like overbearing or even that obvious. I really think that child comment was probably the only thing that made me. Well, that, and it definitely feels like this guy is pretty wealthy and privileged by the way that he writes about certain things. Anyway, yeah, I think that respecting your guardians is great if they haven't done horrible things to you, right? Like,
yes,
treat your parents well, but there are limits to that, and you should please be aware that there are limits, and you do not have to feel like you need to forgive everyone who has. This is just turning into,
like, Chris and Paris also give advice through the lens of Emeralds of Oz. Emeralds of Oz.
No, it's like sapphires of Emeralds of Oz.
Yeah, sure.
Rubies of Emeralds of Oz, of sapphires with diamonds.
I mean, like, we could do this all day with, like, certain things that, like, are fine, like showing up is half the battle. G.I. Joe, that works, I guess.
Oh, I also made another note, not to go back to Freud and Jung, but I have a note that says his connections to Freud and Jung are just, movie has dream. These guys wrote about dream, therefore Freud and Jung.
Yeah, that's about as deep as it goes, guys.
Showing up is half the battle. Yeah, kind of. Number 14, I think, like Chris, like you were saying, just trying is an important step. And number, I don't know, E2, I said, do your
Emerald
best
2,
to be objective.
The second Chaos Emerald. Oz Emerald.
What are Chaos Emeralds?
Sonic the Hedgehog. You have to get all the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic games.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was thinking of this whole time. Is like, this is Robotnik's, like, backdoor plan. Like, he couldn't get the Chaos Emerald, so finally he's like, fuck it, I'll get those Oz Emeralds, and I'll finally be rid of Sonic.
Oh, that's brilliant. See, I never played Sonic, so I'm pretty estranged from the lore of that world, so sorry.
Once I have all the Emeralds of Oz, I can finally out-wisdom Sonic and his dastardly, annoying crew. I don't know. I couldn't come up with a Robotnik thing to say there.
That's okay.
Eggs. I don't...
So yeah, the second Emerald of Wisdom is see the world as if for the first time, which is kind of like cleansing yourself of assumptions, which is why I made the note of, like, do your best to be objective, except when being objective is a disservice to the truth, which is, I think, a problem in the media.
Sure.
And a lot of people who, Anyway, context is important.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Just like anything else. Like, but a lot of the stuff, like, I think we're not, like, dropping in, like, from what particular scenes in the movie he's pulling these from, but, like, how important is that really? Like, in general, it's like, hey, you know, give yourself the chance to make new friends because she makes friends with the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion. Have common, clear boundaries because Dorothy stands up for herself when, you know, whatever that lady's name was tries to take Toto. Ask for help when you need it, like from her friends, the Scarecrow and the Tin Man.
Yeah, like, so number 14 is don't be fooled by appearances and don't take anyone else's word for what they mean. And yeah, I agree that, you know, I kind of liked the author points out that he's kind of doing that and not to take his word as gospel. Like, he's kind of self-aware in 14.
Yeah, he's even like, hey, man, don't even follow all this shit in here. Just kind of see if it works for you or not. Whatever.
Which, honestly, he got some points from me there for the self-awareness. Yeah. You know, that was good. Because there's definitely nothing I hate more than self-help authors who are like, I am the way and the truth. And you're just like, whoa.
He's definitely not doing that. He's just like...
Which I super appreciate how casual... Yeah. I really appreciate how casual the tone is in this. True. I will say I really appreciate that for a self-help book, because they're usually so heavy-handed, and in a lot of ways, self-help books can be kind of, I don't know, almost conniving in the way that they write about things. So I really like how casual the tone is, how he has some self-awareness. He's just like, yeah, man, you know, this worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you, but if not, that's cool too. So that was nice. E3...
I don't think we have to go through this, like, agreeing and disagreeing with every point that we made, like, a note on. So, like, I think it's just maybe list some of the lessons that he gives.
Can you tell that Chris and I have already recorded a 2-hour and 20-minute episode today, and he is fucking done?
Yeah, like, dude, that's not what Terrible Book Club is good for. It's just, like, reviewing aphorisms. That's not what this is. So, like,
what? We can't be aphorism review club? Like,
no, yeah, but like, yeah. So, like, the other stuff here that we generally agreed with, which is like, you know, Emerald 4, compassion. Just have that is a good thing, of course.
Well, I think, Chris, like, I made notes because I wanted to talk about these things, so I'm sorry, but you don't get to tell me we don't talk about
Okay, well, I'm going to have my compassion for you then, in that you took the time to write this down.
Thank you. I appreciate your compassion.
We've learned from Peter Guzzardi and his Emerald of Oz, or I have, at least, I suppose.
And I also reflect that compassion back to you, and appreciate that you don't want to dwell on this stuff, so I'll try to go fast and skip anything that's not... I'll try to stick to the wisdom of Sonic here that's being told to us, and I'll try to go real fast and skip anything that's not important.
Gotta go fast.
Gotta go fast.
Yeah, I'm Sonic. We're gonna read this book real quick.
Emerald of Wisdom 3! Celebrate yourself and others for showing up. My note on that is, yeah, encouraging other people is cool and good and you should do it, but I don't love when that goes too far and people get celebrated for barely fucking doing anything or doing something very lazily.
Yeah, you know, like, again, anything here has limits. That's part of his, like, number 14 thing where he's like, hey, see what works for you, right? So we're seeing how it works for us here.
Number 15 was just about calm and clear boundaries, and I was like, yeah, my man, fuck yes, calm and clear boundaries. I'm all about it. Love it. 16 is just filler. And I said, yeah, sorry, dude, the earlier points accrued have been deducted.
Can you read number 16 then? Because this is the major, if we're going to get into, like, the actual thing about this book. This is the thing that annoyed me.
Watch out for houses falling from the sky, especially if you're being wicked. And the only entry for 16 is, no explanation needed here. This good advice comes a little late for the Wicked Witch of the East, but it's clearly having an impact on her sister. Ha.
Yeah, so I get, like, haha, funny joke, watch out for houses, but, like, fuck you, clearly you're just padding shit, dude. Yeah. Like, as an editor, this is the thing you should be removing.
Yeah, I know. And then the other main point here about editing and cutting stuff is there's just a ton of ideas repeated in different ways. Like, speak your mind pops up, like, 3 or 4 times. And it just could have been cut. Like, you just could have cut all these extra ones. You just only had to say it once.
Yeah, why wasn't that necessarily an emerald? Why not just, like, cut... Maybe he should have just cut it down to the emeralds and had, like, larger chapters about that.
Yeah, that honestly would have also made more sense. I don't know, you made a note that number 17 was about like not taking shortcuts or something, and I was like, I agree.
This was like the one thing actually that I really liked was like kind of more than a surface level analysis, where when Dorothy is told to take the yellow brick road at first in the movie, there's like a spiraling outward of it before it goes down the main road, and she bothers to like kind of skip around the whole spiral before going down the road, and like Peter's like, hey, there's a little lesson in there, and like don't take shortcuts. Do the whole process. And I was like, all right, dude, fine, cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Start at the beginning and take one step at a time. And this is a great, like, a lot of people try to take shortcuts with, like, fitness and health stuff. And I think that's a really useful piece of advice for handling those things. I mean, but handling anything, really. Number 18 was just a repetition that could have been cut. 19 was ask for help. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm still learning to do this. Like, that's another thing that stems from my whole sorry, this is turning into a Freudian episode of Terrible Book Club where I'm just like, yeah, these are all my problems, guys.
Terrible psychoanalysis
Terrible psychoanalysis
with Sigmund Freud. I got it all wrong.
I don't think Sigmund Freud was an Italian pasta hucker, but okay. I don't know, you just sounded like a guy trying to sell me gnocchi on the side of the fucking road.
I messed it all up, these terrible gnocchi.
Freud wasn't. Anyway, Freud was German or Austrian. Sorry, Freud was Austrian, right?
Yeah.
Austrian. Am I right about this?
Yeah.
Okay, Austrian. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Whew. I said German. That was wow. That was a mistake. Yeah, like asking for help is really important, and it's something I still struggle with, like in all aspects of my life. Ask Chris; he'll tell you. Once in a while, I'm like, Chris, I need a really huge favor. I hope it's okay, and if it's not, you can totally tell me to fuck off. And Chris is like, yeah, what is it? And I'm like, can you, like, make an episode document? And he's like, yeah, Ferris, I can pull a, I can do something for our shared hobby. That's fine. Yeah. So asking for help is good. You should do it. Number 20 seems to contradict the speak your mind points from earlier, when he was talking about how politeness can end in cowardice, which is something that that's a point I find really valuable, but he seems to kind of walk that back a few times, so I don't know, that was kind of frustrating.
Yeah, that's him doing the thing again where he's just sort of like saying like, hey, maybe some of this works for you, some of it doesn't. I'm just going to kind of spew what I think out here.
Yeah, again, could have used a bit of a tighter edit in that regard. E4 is Emerald 4, the big point is compassion, which is honestly something that is hugely important and something that took me way too long to learn. I don't know about you, Chris, but I feel like as how fucking liberal and lefty I am, I wasn't always that way. I was a shitty teenager too, and it unfortunately took a long time for me to kind of grow out of all that and be more compassionate. Both towards others and to myself, which is probably the one
especially
I struggle
yourself.
with most. Yeah. So yeah.
But like then number 21 and 22 are the same.
Just compassion, and then compassion gets repeated multiple times, like even more than that.
Can you read the headlines for 21 and 22 just to
yeah, sure.
Give us an idea of that?
Helping others gives you a boost too, and as you see the world, so it shall be. And just the text of those is just compassion. Like, it's just obvious. 63 to 64, I have a note that clearly I need to read something from.
That's pages 63 and 64, not
yeah. I have a note that says, "That's right. The Wizard of Oz was telling us to tear down capitalism too." And I'm just gonna have to find that passage.
Yeah, why don't you read that bit out loud just to re-clarify?
Expand those ripples of compassion ever more widely to include everyone in your region, your state, your country, and the world. Farther and farther out they go until your loving kindness encompasses the entire universe. Sorry, I'm just skipping ahead. Over and over, compassion transmutes the raw materials of Oz in ways that makes Dorothy's journey such a golden success. The land of Oz, you'll notice, is not transactional. In the film, Dorothy never pays for anything. Not for that cab ride or that visit to the beautician. In Baum's book, she's offered food and drink and lodging along the yellow brick road. Yet money never changes hands. Oz is utopian in a way that the world we're living in is not, and one message Dorothy's dream conveys is that deep within us, we aspire to such generosity. In what way? Small as a smile or big as a squirt of oil on a rusty stranger. Oh, wow, that's a sentence. I forgot about that. In what way can you and I help bring this aspect of Oz to life? He's telling you to crush your capitalist oppressors.
Yeah. Get rid of all the money. We don't need it.
The perfect utopian society is not transactional. No money is exchanged.
Yep.
Sorry, I just had to point that out. I thought it was funny.
Thanks for helping, Pete.
23 and 24 are just seem like the same thing, and he could have put them together.
Which are?
We're not the best judges of ourselves, and when it comes to assessing ourselves, we may be getting it completely butt backwards.
So
this is the same thing. I don't know why he separated those. E5 is you already possess what you desire most, and I said I don't totally agree because I think having confidence is good and not letting hurtful shit get you down, but ignoring everyone's criticisms of you is probably not healthy either. Plus, I said plenty of people lack wisdom, heart, or courage.
Yeah.
So, trying to say that everyone just intrinsically... I think maybe everyone has the ability to learn those qualities if they don't already have them, and some people, sure, kind of, through their lived experience, acquire those early and just kind of have them, but I don't think it's fair to just say that, like, everybody's got wisdom and whatever heart is, I don't know.
You can certainly develop them over
Courage.
time, and that comes
from
within yourself, sure,
yes,
but,
yes.
like, you still have to work at things.
And yeah, again, having confidence is good, like I said, but I do think it's a tough balance, right? To listen to criticisms of yourself and to try to recognize whether they're valid, but you need to do that work. You can't just ignore everything everybody says about you. That's negative. I don't think you should let it... Obviously, like, there's a fucking line. Like, if some fucking internet troll is like, you're a fat, dumb idiot, like, I don't give a shit about that. But if a friend of mine is like, hey, Paris, I think sometimes you can be...
a fat, dumb idiot.
Fat, dumb idiot. I'd be like, oh, man, Chris, you want to explain to me why I'm a fat, dumb idiot? And if Chris is like, well... here's my short thesis on why you're a fat, dumb idiot. I'm like, well, Chris, you know me pretty well. I guess I need to decide if...
I would never even say fat and dumb either, so...
Oh, but idiot, totally on the table.
I believe the first two are invalid criticisms, but idiot...
Obviously, like, we're just having a laugh, but...
yeah.
But no, I could, like... Poor Chris has been my friend for so long, and he's had to put up with me being a stubborn fucking piece of shit. I can be really stubborn. So I appreciate that Chris has told me a few times how I am stubborn and it is frustrating, and so that has helped me be less stubborn over time. Anyway, that's just an example.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being humble, you fuck.
Yeah. Hey, I had to have confidence. That's what Pete said. It was always in me all along to criticize you.
You had the courage and heart and wisdom to put me down. To me.
Yeah, perfect example of how, like, these things can backfire, right?
Yeah. Number 25 is something said from an extreme place of extreme privilege. Number 25 is the best things in life are free. And I was like, yeah, if you have all your basic needs met, I think it's important to value human connection, but, yeah, it's not that easy for everyone, my dude. Not everybody wakes up, able to pay all their bills in a safe community where they're not threatened. I just think it's kind of insensitive to be like, oh, the best things in life are free, huh?
Yeah, after a certain point, sure, but you still need food. And food is good, and it costs money. I don't know if you knew this, but, like, food is one of my favorite things in the world, and it costs money.
Also, I'd just like to point out that my favorite meme where I feel very seen, there's this meme of a really chubby cat curled up in bed, and the text reads, how I sleep knowing food is good and I get to eat more of it tomorrow.
I love that one. That's saved on my phone as a permanent thing.
Yeah. That is just how I feel all the time.
Yeah, that's, like, honestly, it's a lot of my reason to, like, wake up tomorrow is like, but hey, dude, food is there tomorrow.
I'm not even kidding. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I just ate dinner and I had a little dessert, so, I really shouldn't eat. But I'm like, oh, but if I go to sleep, I get to wake up and eat again. Like, I'm cutting down the time.
I've had that thought before, 100%.
I'm cutting down the time between me and my next snack.
All right. Let's keep on going down the yellow brick road of wisdom.
26, I said, Hard agree, except don't get too caught up in that or you'll mire yourself in indecision.
Yeah, you have to like read these. You can't just number them, Paris. The listeners have no context.
26 is keep an eye out for the law of unintended consequences. And that just means, consider the consequences of your actions, which is reasonable. But like I said, I think as someone like me, I can get really too caught up in all the possible permutations, like red string on a board full of newspaper cutouts, kind of like,
yeah.
A little too crazy about desperately trying to make the exact right choice every time, and I that can definitely paralyze you. Mm-hmm. So
that's what paralyzes me most of the time when I'm just making music, which is like the blank page where you're like, now what's the best thing to do? You need to just do.
Number 27 is you can face anything when you're arm in arm with friends, and I was like, yeah, friends are cool. Why does this need to be said? Please cut this.
I guess maybe you could have rolled that into like the ask for help thing too. Like again, you could this could all be condensed. Number 28 though.
Number 28 is skipping is always a quick pick me up, and Chris said,
I know. I've never skipped once in my life. It seems like it would hurt my knees, and it doesn't really seem like that efficient, or I don't know, maybe like I would just rather jog.
Yeah, I was also like, this could have been I know he was just trying to make a joke, but it just doesn't.
The jokes are so corny though.
Yeah.
It's just like such corny.
29 said, you can't laugh and be afraid at the same time. My note is fucking try me. I laugh when I'm uncomfortable and afraid all the damn time. I'm full of laughter and fear. They exist simultaneously.
That's my invitation, I guess.
Chris, that sounded kind of... Oh, wow. Okay. That's the thing that happened.
Speaking of fear laughing...
Yeah, look at that.
You should confront those fears.
An example.
Which is what number 30 wants you to do.
Fear is nothing to be ashamed of. But I was just like, yeah, confronting your fears is absolutely very healthy and necessary. But he makes it seem it's so easy when it's really not. It's not easy.
That's why you're afraid of them.
It's not easy. Number 31 is don't be seduced by pretty poppies. And hilariously, he doesn't make the direct connection between poppies and opium. He talks about, he's like, oh, just be afraid of them because they're like too pretty to be good, like too good to be true. And I was like, you could have just went straight for the opium connotation, but he didn't. And that whole passage just makes addiction seem like something that's kind of easy to conquer, and it's not.
He's got a little bit of that, like, just will yourself out of it in fear.
I mean, he talks about doing group therapy for, I guess, an eating disorder?
Yeah.
He said he's struggled with food, and it was like an addiction for him, and he did group therapy, and I guess it really helped him get to a healthier place, which is great. But there's just a little bit of it, like, just take action, it'll be fine. And I guess for me, I'm thinking of like drug addictions and how difficult those are. I know food is, we just talked about how much we love food, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it just comes across as a little too simplified for a topic that is really nuanced and complex. So number 32 can just be cut because it's a repetition of speak up, ask for help. 33, call on a higher power. Well, if you've ever listened to TBC, you know why we have a problem with that.
No. Generally just a toxic idea to me. I understand that admitting you need help is a huge step in it, and maybe the thought of a higher power can bring you to help yourself, through thinking that or having faith in something that's guiding you. But too often, prayer and higher power stuff is really used as a way to think you did something when you didn't do anything because you prayed, and that's it, and that's all you did. You got to do the action part too, guys.
Yeah, I also feel similarly. Yeah, I feel similarly. I think that people, I have no problem if people have a faith that's healthy for them that they engage in. Healthily, yeah. Just gonna repeat myself like this fucking book. But like you said, prayer and faith can often be a reason for inaction and not really doing anything to help yourself because you're just like, oh, God will take care of it, or the goddess will take care of it, or nature will take care of it, or whatever form your deity or deities take. So
you need to take the action yourself.
Yeah, and I said my note My note to your note was hardest degree of all time, flex arm emoji. So please pray responsibly. That's our note for number 33. Somehow there's a note in here that angels are vampires, and I was like, oh my god, vampire Viking angels confirmed.
Yeah, that's the Wisdom of Oz. He finally found them all.
A callback to episode, I don't know, 40, I think.
Something about the angel had fangs or something.
Yeah. I also don't even know. I'm looking to see where the fuck that even came from.
Because it was text. Like, this is the point where, like, they're getting to, in the movie, where they're getting to the Wicked Witch's castle. Because I had a note about, like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like, if the Wicked Witch was, like, weak to water, why did she have a bucket of water hanging around in her castle that Dorothy could splash on her accidentally? Wouldn't you not want water anywhere near you? I
don't know, man. You still gotta wash the floors, right?
Well, yeah. Also,
you gotta keep this evil palace clean.
Also, I was informed by Rebecca that in Wicked, if you know what that is, it's like the musical / book about like the true story of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh yeah, I've never read it or seen it. I don't fucking know anything about it.
And like at the end of that book, it's like, oh, the water didn't really kill her. It was just her excuse to like fade away and like not have to deal with anything. So retconned that.
I mean, that's fine, I guess. Sure. I mean, she was a witch, so she could have made it seem like she was melting and then disappeared.
Wicked cast the Wicked Witch as more of like she's going against like the almost like tyrannical nature of like the other good witches, and she's just trying to define herself.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay, well, I don't know. That's interesting, maybe. I just remember when I was in high school, it was really popular, and I never liked any of the songs the other theater kids would sing, so I never checked it out. I thought they were really lame. I wasn't into it.
I just know that one line from that one song, so.
I don't even know.
Something I could defy gravity.
Yeah, it's wicked lame. It's not good. It's not good. Why do people like this? Why do people like this? Sorry, listeners. I'm real particular.
Like just doing drive-by Wicked roasts.
I'm really particular with musical theater that I like because I spent a lot of time working on musicals and plays, and just a pain in the ass about it. So sorry, y'all. If you enjoy that, that's great. I'm not trying to take away from that. Just not for me. It's not for me.
Continue on.
I can't find the note where he says that angels are vampires. I don't know where I got. What the fuck? What the fuck was I talking about?
We'll never know, Paris.
Oh! I found it. My friend Jerry is a big believer in angels, but he tells me that they have an unusual limitation. They can't work their magic in your life without an invitation.
Oh, that's
They need your permission to cross the threshold. Angels are vampires, confirmed.
Yeah, that's it.
Confirmed. Number 34 is the same as 31. Please cut one of them. 35 is just be courageous when it's safe and convenient.
Yeah.
That was
be courageous
something.
when it's easy, guys.
Don't worry about being courageous when it's actually hard. That kind of sucked. Because he's like, it's not.
A lot of the next ones are just rehashes. There's number 36, which 36 is actually not a rehash. Just crying can be helpful, sure.
Yeah, great. You could have thrown that.
Fear.
You could have thrown crying can be cathartic in like a bunch of the other chapters. Humility is cool and good. Number 37. Yep, agree. Face what you fear. That's just the same as 30.
And again, 38 is also a rehash
of courage, fear.
39 is especially egregious.
Let me read that for you.
In terms of fillerness, again.
When the sky blackens with winged monkeys, run! And the only text under that heading is just a smiley face emoji.
Yeah, that's the worst one. That's the one that pissed me off the most. I was like, you're charging people money for this, dude. Have some respect.
Yeah, that's not cool. Number 40 was a good leader keeps a light hand on the reins of power. And I was like, yeah, this is another balance thing, though. It's like, yeah, being a despot isn't great, but like, you need to recognize when you have to be the one to make an executive decision and not delegate everything,
Actually, you should read the note as you wrote it, Pass, which is, being a depot isn't great.
Well, at least I read it. I retconned my own typo in my mind. Yes!
I don't think being a depot would be that great either, because you gotta hold shit all the time, and people are always shipping stuff in and out, and so much to take.
Chris, I reached the fifth dimension of being a literary critic.
Yeah, there you go.
Number 41 is just fear, courage again, and my note is please stop repeating shit. Number 42, compassion, manners again, please stop. Good Lord, number 43 is also compassion. 44, compassion again. Oh God.
How about you just read the titles of like 42 through 44?
Sure.
Which is all compassion.
42, killing with kindness actually works. 43, consider the possibility that inside every winky guard brandishing his wicked spear resides a fearful person waiting for someone courageous enough to set him free. Number 44, even winged monkeys have a backstory that makes them less frightening.
It's the same.
Number 45, whether or not we keep our promises says a lot about who we are. I mean, I feel like that's tied to compassion too. 46 is just speak up for yourself again. Again, it's just these same ideas repeated over and over again when, like Chris said, he really could have condensed them into like, you know, 5 or 6 or 10, I don't know, tightly edited.
7 Chaos Emeralds. Just have those be the chapter titles and put all your different points. Because he's trying to present it like chronologically, like you're watching the movie along with him and reading the book.
Yeah, right.
Which I think just ruins the flow of everything when you could have had just like the compassion chapter and all the parts in the book or in the movie that represent that.
Actually, the next one is like one of my favorite parts of this. Emerald 7, which is pull back the curtain and see things as they really are. I really liked this because he posits that adults and authority figures don't always have your best interest in mind, and it's good to question that. And I was like, sick. That's a great piece of advice. But then he takes a turn that I don't like, which is kind of where he's like, replace them with God or something.
Yeah.
God damn it. I don't know that he outright says that, but it's kind of like
it's hinted that, hey, your faith is the most important thing to follow.
Exactly, yeah. But I really like the point he makes in this section of fuck the wizard who represents the patriarchy and embrace your role as a powerful woman in this fucked up fantasy society. Fuck yeah! So, like,
hell yeah, Pete.
Hell yeah.
I'm down.
He makes a point a couple of times about how everyone in the Wizard of Oz most people who have a lot of power are women, and they're kind of the driving forces helping Dorothy along and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a fun thing that I never noticed, so that's cool. 48, forgive and forget isn't quite that simple, and it's not always appropriate. We've already talked about that when we talked about the whole parent thing. 49, just compassion again. 50 just kind of boils down to, like, if you can afford it, travel more. Yeah, you'll get
another little bit of a privilege thing, but it helps. It definitely helps expose.
That's also part of the compassion thing too.
Yeah,
you know. 47. It's like
one of my favorite ones because the header there is experience plus validation equals confidence, and yeah, that's a totally valid way to look at it, where like you need to get the confidence, you have to have the experience of working on something, and then a little bit of validation from your outside peers. It shouldn't all be validation; it should be a combination of both a little bit. And that's how you get that inner fire to keep doing what you're doing, man.
Right.
So that's another part I really liked.
Yeah. Chris, you want to talk about your last couple notes there?
Yeah, because it's like the final two things. Like number 51 is just get a dog, which
is weird because it's like.
Dogs are cool, but like not everyone can do that. And like also don't just get a dog just for like because a book about wisdom and Wizard of Oz told you to.
Yeah, there's so many reasons that I don't like that. It's like, I love dogs, but I don't own one because I don't feel like I have the time or capacity to really give one the love and care it deserves, so I don't own one. And I don't think we need to convince people to adopt animals they can't take care of, because that happens at a frightening rate already. So, you know, also, like, some people are allergic, some people are scared of dogs, some people don't like them. I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing to just throw in there. And then your other note, which is also a weird thing to just throw in there, the last piece,
number 52. Can you read the header for number 52?
It's all about the shoes.
It's just get some nice shoes that like give you more confidence, I think, is the point.
I don't know, I mean, like, having the right footwear is important, but it does seem a little thrown in there.
Well, there's something to be said for that and everything, but it just seems like one of those like filler jokes.
Not even dressing well, dressing appropriately. Like, and what I mean is like, hey, if you're gonna start running, go and get fitted for running shoes. I know that isn't always possible for everyone, but if you can, get fitted for them, because the running experts will put you in a shoe that's gonna keep you comfortable and prevent injury.
No, they'll put your whole body in the shoe.
And instead of running, you just roll down the street in a shoe. Or, you know, if you're doing any sort of activity, just put some time into the kind of shoes you have, I guess. But this seems like a really weird time to be giving shoe advice. Okay.
Alrighty.
The last emerald, you've got the power and you've had it all along, is just E5 again, which was, Chris, I need post-it notes. I ran out. Oh my god, I need post-it notes, for our next book, actually. Number 5 is just you already possess what you desire most, which is the same as you've got the power and you've had it all along.
Yeah.
So 2 of the emeralds are the same.
We could already knock this down and just make it the 7 Chaos Emeralds, like Sonic truly needs.
Yeah. And then the last quote from Dorothy and Glinda, the last quotes from Dorothy and Glinda kind of go back on everything, and they're best summarized as, like, don't go too far from home and just appreciate what you have and definitely don't grow as a person, which is, like, the total opposite of this whole book.
So, like, yeah, I don't know what. He's just, like, throwing whatever at the wall and being like, here's some ideas, try that out, buy my book.
Yeah, and I like I said, and some of my final notes are, I'm not really down with this message of settling for what you have, what's good enough. Don't become a slave to perfection, but don't just settle. Like, I don't know. Page 119, I said, is like, we're reading Being in Time.
Can we also...
I don't know what that note was about.
Here's the point where we bring up the fact that this man worked with Stephen Hawking on his like, very famous books that he put out, and, like,
Sorry, I found the passage where I felt like I was reading Being in Time again. Dorothy has discovered a conduit to the vast realm of the collective unconscious. The home to which she's referring is less a physical place than it is a feeling, and less a feeling than it is a state of being. In fact, it is the ground state of all being. This is the spiritual infinitude from which each of us rises up briefly in this lifetime, like a wave on the ocean, individual yet wholly connected, before falling back to merge with the endless depths from which we came. Dorothy's true home, and yours and mine, is the boundless wellspring of creation, the divine force that animates every religion and imbues every aspect of the universe with energy. Home. Say it slowly.
Damn,
and this just sounds like...
That's so true, man. You need another hit? I'm going to give you the bong.
Yeah. It just sounds like when I was reading Being in Time and trying to understand the definition of the sign, and, like, anyway, sorry, if you're a philosophy nerd, that might make some sense to you. It kind of just makes this movie seem way more... It's pretentious, I guess is what I'm saying. It's pretentious. He's kind of going off the rails when he starts talking about the explanation of the English word home being sacred. Home, say it slowly. The letter H contributes what's known as a voiceless sound. Let that go, and what's left vibrates from your vocal cords. In the ancient Hindu wisdom tradition, all of creation sprang from this word sound, Om. It's the original sound within which everything is contained. As one of the great Vedic texts puts it, whoever knows this one syllable contains all that he desires. Om is the primordial mother. Om is the home we all carry within us. I can't pronounce...
Whoa.
Yeah, it's...
Whoa, Pete.
He starts talking about home and really going off the rails there, which I don't appreciate. I think that's just just pushing it. It's taking it way too far.
Yeah.
And
that casual tone got ruined, because all of a sudden the mushrooms kicked in.
Yeah. I said the end is like a very Karen fucking ending, and the whole thing feels really silly, because at the end... He's trying to market, like, a tool. Remember the summary mentioned a tool? He's trying to kind of say this manual is going to help you fix things in your life, and you're supposed to ask yourself, like, what would Dorothy do? Like, WWDD?
Yeah, there's that little Jesus-y bit popping. You're supposed to, like, go through the emeralds in a certain, like, not even a certain passage, just think about all 8 of those emeralds and see if they apply to your situation.
Yeah,
See you later. Thanks for the $5.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm sure he charged way more than $5 for this. But anyway, I hope that the humility he had earlier about how, this wasn't the way, the truth, and the life, or whatever. I hope I hope it's obvious and that people don't. I don't know. I guess people can do whatever the fuck they want, but I just really don't like when people try to tell you what to think. Yeah, I don't know, and. You had some notes
not really.
at the end.
No, that's about it, man, for me. Like,
well, because at the end, after it's over, he gives you the tool for, like, just think about all the emeralds when you're having a problem. And then he does a little bit of talking about the production of The Wizard of Oz of the film. There's, like, some facts in there, which we got into because... So, Chris had some notes about how... because there are some mentions in the back. This is where we're going to talk about some, like, eating disorder and sexual assault stuff. There's some notes at the back where MGM said that MGM thought Judy Garland was overweight as a child actress, and Chris was really surprised. Yeah, I also didn't know about this. And then there's like a note about the director slapping Judy to get her to do a scene properly. And I was also so coincidentally, maybe 2 weeks before or a week or two before we read this, my boyfriend was actually like made some joke about the Wizard of Oz production. And I was like, oh, that was kind of tasteless. And he was like, no, that really happened. I was like, what? And he went on to explain to me that even though Judy Garland never made these claims, her husband and several other people that worked on the production said that she was like forced to take drugs to try to like keep her weight down. She was put on this like really intense exercise program. She was basically just constantly told she wasn't attractive enough. They tried to make her wear like a wig and stuff, and she was a child actress at this time. Yeah. She wasn't an adult. And there are also claims that she was physically abused, like, you know, the director smacking her and things like that. And also she may have been sexually abused or raped by cast members, particularly the folks who played the Munchkins. But, you know, I don't know what the, you know, because she never made the claims while she was alive. I'm not like a fucking film historian. I'm not going to go into the details, but just finding that out and seeing that, I mean, at least he touched upon it. I was
but he doesn't, glad. He just like mentions, hey, bad shit happened.
Yeah, I kind of wish
you later.
I kind of just wish that he had spent more time talking about all this problematic shit. He just kind of states things and continues on without engaging with how fucked up this stuff is. So that was a little unfortunate. I think that if you're going to try to say like, hey, this movie is a positive force for good, and also spend the whole book being like, hey, don't take things at face value, look behind the curtain, like, probably could have used a little more curtain peeking, is all I'm saying. Yeah. You know,
that's the major issue with the whole text here, is that it's extremely shallow.
It's shallow, and it should have been more closely edited for repetition in the content. And there's also like a note in here about he felt it was necessary to say that Margaret Hamilton was comfortable with her, that she wasn't physically attractive. And I was like, why do we need to talk about this? Why do we need to say that, oh, hey, one of the actresses wasn't hot and she was totally cool with it? And like, I don't know. It just annoyed me because it didn't seem like a detail that needed to be discussed. And and after you spend all this time explaining how Judy Garland was like persecuted for her appearance, like, what, we gotta keep talking about this now? Like, we gotta keep talking about how women in the film looked? Anyway, it's a very minor note that I have. It was like one sentence, but I was like, when I read it, my immediate reaction was, I yield my time, fuck you.
What a hero of a generation that gentleman was.
Oh my god.
If you don't know what that is, just look up I yield my time, fuck you, and I'm sure it'll...
Because I think I had like just watched that or whatever, or recently anyway. And so I guess we're done talking about the book. Oh wait, do we want to say how we can fix it? Because I have a story for after we're done with the book.
I mean, you know, my thing is like this, again, it's just a shallow take on it. I'm sure there are more in-depth analyses of The Wizard of Oz as a film out there. Maybe not in a sort of like self-help sort of oriented thing, but like a lot of the things in here, it's just like, you know, the same shit we see in other self-help books. Stand up for yourself. Fear is a mind killer. Be compassionate to yourself and to others. Like, sure, great. Just saying that shit, I've heard that before a bunch of times. Could you at least maybe tie it into the movie a little bit deeper? Or even give me better strategies than just think about the emeralds? I can't just... Maybe if I want a better film analysis, that's a different thing, but like... A lot of this just rubbed me as like a side project that got pooped out on the side. And hey, it's kind of all right, I guess, because it doesn't give you straight up terrible advice all the time. But why do I need it to be in a Wizard of Oz format?
Yeah, it's a little silly.
I don't know if there's much to fix besides edits.
I guess it's definitely, like I said, my two concerns were not really engaging with how problematic the film production was, and secondly, not having the content cut for repetition and just being more streamlined, which, you know, you would hope that as a famous and successful editor he would have done, but he didn't. So I don't know.
It's just one of those things where, like, I just don't see the value if you're not going to put more work into it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, but in terms of self-help books, I mean, I think this one is definitely a lot better than any of the other ones we've ever read.
You know, I'll give it that,
you know?
for sure. If I had to give someone a self-help book, this one wouldn't be the worst.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think that there's plenty of good to be taken from it, but you do have to kind of read it with a critical eye, like any self-help book, and I always worry that people don't do that because typically when people are reading self-help books, it's because they're desperate for a fix, and they're more inclined to believe and trust in what they're reading. But anyway, I don't think there's anything too dangerous in this. I think it was written from a good place with good intentions, right?
Yeah, and though Austin can be cute, I guess, I just wish that there was a deeper connection than, like, hey, they talked about dreams, so Freud, right?
Yeah, I'm not into cutesy, overly positive shit like this. Like, that's the other problem for me.
It's a little impractical, is how I feel.
Yeah, and I just, you know, when there is like a veneer of white male privilege all over it, you know, which is hard to ignore, especially in the times in which we live. So there's that. But I don't think this guy is like too, I don't think he's too off the mark. I think that he was just trying to, you know, do something. It's
what his focal point
nice.
is, right? It's his totem for his.
Yeah. You know,
so, whatever, Pete. You know, it's fine that this is out there, I guess, but just a little bit more effort next time, maybe.
And center the cover, please.
Yeah,
I know it's not. Yeah. I know it's not your fault, but talk to your publisher, because that really is frustrating. Sorry. So my other story, that is only tangentially related, is when I was a stage manager as a teenager, I worked on a production of The Wizard of Oz, and it was the craziest show I've ever worked on. I don't know where to begin. It was a huge show, and even though I did theater stuff in high school, I know that sounds kind of like, you know, not a big deal, but we had a full-sized proper theater with like a large audience space, full catwalk. You know, we had lighting and audio booths at the back where you could call the show. There were full wings. We had a whole prop basement. Like, it was, for some reason, despite the fact that I grew up in like kind of a shitty area, I guess when the high school was built, the city must have been more prosperous, and they put a lot of money into that theater, and so like we had a fucking proper ass theater to run shows in. So you know, when I was running productions, it was a real production. And the Wizard of Oz one was just, man, it was a great production. It was really good, but good lord, just crazy shit happened. Like, we had 60 children as extras to play the Munchkins, in addition to the regular high school cast, which is an absurd amount of people in a production.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's too many children.
It's too many children. It's too many people. We had these huge, elaborate sets because we finally had hired a real technical director, because for a while, they were like trying to expect me to be the stage manager and the technical director, and those two things are very different. Like, technical directors build scenery. I did not know how to fucking build scenery and props, so thank God they hired this guy who was he was like a dad to somebody, and he was fucking awesome. And he and the crew, like, we built these, you know, we all worked together to build stuff, but, you know, obviously, like, designing and directing that building was not my forte as a teenager. So we built these fucking beautiful, huge-ass sets, but they were unwieldy and dangerous, and one night during Somewhere Over the Rainbow, my crew fucked up. They were late on a cue. Like, I called the cues. I don't know how much, like, sense any of this makes to people listening. I'm sure a lot of you are fucking reformed theater nerds out there. I called the cue. They responded a little late for some reason, and they rolled over Dorothy's foot while she was starting, right before she was about to start Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Really gonna help her hit that octave, though.
Dude, so she was like full tears singing the song, and the audience went wild. They were like, oh my god, that's the most emotional, real version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
My fucking foot got crushed.
And I hate to laugh, but poor Sam. Oh my god. Sam, the woman who played Dorothy, I I only mention this because her name's Samantha Johnson, and she is an amazing vocalist to this day. She has done a lot of stuff, and if you're interested in hearing somebody with a fucking fabulous voice, like, check her shit out. She's great.
Can sing with a crushed foot, too.
Can sing with a crushed foot, and I felt so awful. I mean, her foot got fucking mangled. Like, she was injured, and I felt horrible.
Injured bad.
And then, I mean, a bunch of little things happened that I can't even remember. I mean, it was just a shit show. Like, I was working so much. I don't even know. I was basically just made of black coffee for those few months of my life. There was another night where there's a part in the musical where I think it was actually intermission, where the second act starts with the Wicked Witch of the West giving a monologue, kind of on like a sort of darkened stage where she's just spotlit and the rest of the stage is dark and the orchestra pit is below her. And so, it's intermission and we're about to come back, and, the Wicked Witch gets on the stage, and she's waiting for the spotlight to hit her because that's her cue to start a monologue. And, I'm like, spot 3, stand by, spot 3, go, because you always stand by your cue and then tell them to go so they get them prepped or whatever. And it doesn't happen. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? You missed your cue. Like, hello, someone get that happening. And they're like, I don't know, the lights just aren't turning on. And I was like, what? And all we could see is the orchestra pit lights on. And, those are, like, really faint. They're just so the musicians can see their music down there. And we're just like, what the fuck? And all of a sudden, so in order to operate a stage show, like, I'm calling as the stage manager, I'm calling the show from the back of the house. So I'm up in the booth that's, like, above the audience, all the way at the back of the theater. And I have 2 assistant stage managers on either wing to run things on the ground. And, I hear one of the crew get on the headset, and they're like, my friend Ashley, she goes, Paris, it smells like dead people fucking down here. I was like, whoa, what? And she's like, oh my God, it smells awful. It kind of smells like wires burning. And I was like, oh, fuck. I look at the lighting guy, lighting and sound guy, and I'm like, hey, dude, I think there's an electrical fire in the patch room. And he fucking rips it, just runs through the dark audience, right through. And I was like, damn it, why did he run? People are going to panic. But luckily no one really noticed. So he runs to the patch room, which is like off of one of the wings. And sure enough, the patchboard was on fire. Uh-oh. So we're like, okay. And before we know that there is actually a fire, I'm like, okay, here's the plan. Like, hey, can someone crawl to the orchestra pit? I have someone crawl to the orchestra pit in the dark to tell them to point their lights up towards the Wicked Witch so she can give her monologue, so we can at least stall for some time. And like, cause I don't know, the orchestra lights were working because they must have been on some other circuit, or like plugged into some extension cord that ran to something else. And somehow we were able to run the rest of the show. Like, the dude like put the fire out and was able to, and like some of the patchboard was still working, so we just like swapped the cables around and we ran the show anyway. And I now, as an adult, am like, wow, that was really dangerous. Like, yeah. Hundreds of people could have died. But yeah, it went on. It was fine. It was good. It was just,
listen to your longing, Paris. Get the show done.
Dude, I fucking love I love being a stage manager. Setting electrical fires in theater. I love being a stage manager, but it's extremely stressful, and you don't get paid for it, or if you do, it's very little, and you constantly have to like move around to follow productions. And I just decided it wasn't for me. Like that and audio engineering, I kind of decided early on that I was just like, it's kind of too crazy for the compensation you get. But anyway, I worked on a production of The Wizard of Oz. It was fucking rad. It was the first time the theater group had been profitable in as far as anyone could remember. It went off really well, but it was just a fucking crazy experience. So yeah, I don't know, I just felt like, I don't know, time to tell this story. I guess
That's show business for you, honestly, though. Is like, if a show goes completely 100% smoothly, that is a rare gem. A rare, rare gem indeed.
An emerald, Chris?
Yes. That's my emerald for you, Paris.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, if, I don't know, unless we have anything further to say, I think we're going to wrap up this little gem in some tissue paper. And
yeah. That's it for me.
Silk. All right. So thank you to our
emerald of wisdom, know when to end the episode.
Thank you to our patrons. So thank you to Dari, Greg, Will, Veronica, Dee, Lynn, Senya, Jakob, Bobby Blackcat, Jensina, Mayo Cat, Elliot, Kieran, Martin, and Jay. If you also want to help support the show, you can rate or review us on the platform of your choice. You can share the show, maybe tell your friends about it. You can subscribe to or follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Goodreads, or you could become a patron. You could give us as little as $1 a month or as much as $10 a month if you would like to enjoy some extra content. I feel like the sweet spot there on the Patreon is really the $5 a month tier, because you get access to all of our Mystery Science Theater styled commentary tracks for a lot of movie and TV shows. We also have a 5-episode video series called Terrible as Torture, where we do some improv comedy based on prompts that people have given us. So that $5 a month tier is really good. So, get in there if you can. You can also contact us directly on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, or you can send an email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com.
All right. Well, having said all that, this was a shorter read because we were sandwiched between one giant fantasy book and another giant fantasy book. So we're recording this way early while we complete that other giant fantasy book. Paris, do you think it's okay to let everyone know where we're returning to?
Well, listeners, you may remember that we've read a lot of fantasy books on this show, and we'd like to take breaks from those, but sometimes we have to go back. So we're gonna go back to the Midlands and to Hara and whatever the other part of that continent's called. We're gonna go back to sexy dominatrixes and leather outfits. We're gonna go back to fuck school.
Yeah, we're going back there.
We're gonna read The Blood of the Fold, which is the 3rd book in the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. That is our next episode. We will have probably have a special guest. I think TJ is joining us again. He was with us on episode, not episode 2, he was with us for
Stone of Tears.
Sword of Tears, thank you, for our second go at this series. So you may remember the Sword of Truth series as being something that we think has really good writing and some good elements, but overall troubling in a lot of ways. And also just kind of samey hero's journey stuff. So it's one of those it's a little more challenging to critique, because it's got some really good stuff, but it's got some real bad stuff too. So
boy, oh boy, I already read it, and you are just starting it, and boy, oh boy, Paris, it's not as wacky as Stone of Tears was, but it feels a little bit circuitous in a way, let me say. Yeah,
I think your commentary was that it didn't feel like we really needed that whole book, huh?
Yeah. To be honest.
So we'll see how it goes. It's 600 plus pages, so that's why we were trying to get some shorter episodes in. Real pages. It's not like Maradonia where it's quote 400 pages, but it's really like 100, or 200, whatever. But after that, I guess I don't mind telling people a little bit about the schedule if we've already settled on some stuff. I think we've got. Let me just pulling up the TBC master file. Really exciting. I have a multi-tabbed. Guess what, guys? A multi-tabbed spreadsheet.
For everything.
For everything.
She's a data manager. That's what she does. I'm over here just making funny noises.
No, I'm not a manager, but I guess I manage data.
That's what I meant.
I'm a data scientist. Data scientist, which is a really self-aggrandized title for what I do. Yeah. Let me say that. Spreadsheets. My life is spreadsheets. Oh right, I forgot. So our next episode, so Blood of the Fold is next. After that, you will have an episode that is a live read crossover with the Antiques Freaks. We, if you have been paying attention to us on Twitch in the last couple of months, you probably already saw that we recorded this quite a bit ago. But it'll actually be a full-fledged episode after Blood of the Fold. After that, I have some stuff on the schedule, but I'm not quite sure where we're all going to land. So I guess I'll just leave it there for now.
Don't make any promises yet.
No. I mean, for October, we're still going to do like 2 spooky books for the month of October, or something that's kind of horror-y, or, 2 things that are sort of horror-y. And we have some plans for that. We have some ideas for September and for the other August episode, but we're not totally sure. Again, if you are a patron and you have not requested a book this year, please get your requests in, because we have a few more episodes to fill out before the end of this season. So, if you would like us to get your book in the mix for this season, so for in 2020, please send us a message. I mean, conversely, even if you're not a patron, please send us recommendations anyway, because we do collect those and we do go through them. We do read things that non-patrons request. It's just that if you're a patron, it rockets to the top of the list, and we do it like as immediately as possible. And we have to do it even if we don't want to.
Yeah, so, that's the other thing about that.
Whereas if you're not a patron, we still may end up reading your suggestion. It just may take like a year or 2 or never, if it doesn't work for us or doesn't fit into the schedule. So, I think it's worth taking a shot and letting us know that you'd like us to read something. So please reach out. But until next time, please have a lovely week. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you later, Paris.
Goodbye, Chris.